Thank you. So, ladies and gentlemen, it's my pleasure to invite to the podium Mr. Glyn Hughes, who is Director General TIACA, which is the Global Air Cargo Association, to give us his goodwill message.
Thank you, Raffaella. Observing the protocols, I recognize Your Excellencies, the Secretary General for AFRAA, Mr. Berthe, Mr. Mesfin Bekelele, Group CEO for Ethiopian Airways, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. Closer to home, and I'm just going to focus on one product. We all love giving flowers for Mother's Day, for Valentine's Day, for wedding anniversaries, or in my case, the day after Mother's Day, the day after Valentine's Day, the day after wedding anniversaries, because I forget them all, and I'm reminded by my wife, my mum, and everybody else. But what we love to give is we love to give African flowers. They are the world's best. And if you just look at the value that is extracted in terms of economic value, both here in Ethiopia and neighboring Kenya, just allow me to give a couple of numbers. In Ethiopia, over 200,000 people are employed in the flower growing business. That generated last year over $500 million to the Ethiopian economy, exporting those flowers predominantly to the markets in Western Europe. In Kenya, which is an even larger growing market, there's over 500,000 people employed in that sector. So these are really just two examples of where products which can actually be air freighted out can drive significant and huge value for a country. So then the question is, well, what are the key ingredients to make, as it were, air cargo an economic driver supporting a national economy? Well, it's very, very simple. It starts with having supportive government regulations and a vision. It requires liberalization in terms of airspace, because cargo is what we call unidirectional. It moves in one direction only. It doesn't have a return journey. So to have effective and efficient deployment of aircraft assets, such as freighters, you need to have an economic regime in place which allows the airlines to move the assets where they can actually be most effectively deployed. So government support is crucial. You then need a quality infrastructure. You need, particularly with today's supply chains, which are moving sensitive cargo, perishable cargo, time-sensitive, highly valuable, you need to have secure facilities, you need to have cold chain facilities in place, and that again is very crucial. It's something which also, sadly, is a little bit short in many parts of this continent. You then need adequate capacity. Before COVID, roughly 50% of all cargo moved in the bellies of passenger aircraft. We know that during COVID, with such a dramatic grounding of the passenger fleet, the freighter traffic grew, and today freighters account for about 75% of global air cargo movements. As the passenger business resumes, we expect the equilibrium perhaps not go back to 50-50, but certainly around 55-45. So freighters will play a hugely important role going forward, but we cannot underestimate the value of the passenger belly capacity, particularly here in this particular continent. We also need an efficient and digitally connected infrastructure, and that is, again, recognizing that the air cargo that's moved does neither walk nor talk, so we need to communicate for it, so we need to have digital connectivity so that all parties of the supply chain, and the supply chain is very complex, but it's crucial that all parties can communicate with each other so that the cargo can be handled, moved, stored, controlled and monitored in the most optimal way possible. We also need a skilled workforce. This is something which is actually crucial. In almost every industry today, we're actually vying for the next generation of workforce, but we need to change the story that we're actually telling. Air cargo, when I joined, and I know this is going to shock you, but I joined this industry 40 years ago. I know you're all thinking I look far too young to have been in it 40 years. Now I see everybody shaking their heads. Okay, I look old enough to have been in it 40 years. But when I joined, this industry was really about moving boxes. That's it. We just moved a box from A to B. Now it's not about moving the box. It's about the emotional impact of what that box brings. Whether or not it's flowers or jewelry or electronics, whatever's moving, or life-saving pharmaceuticals, vaccines, whatever that's moving, there's an emotional connectivity to the person that's receiving it. So we need to use those stories to motivate the next generation of workforce to look at the air cargo industry as a way of really impacting the global society. And I think lastly, these are just my last few words, e-commerce, and we're going to have a panel later on this afternoon which will also delve into this in more detail. E-commerce in most parts of the world is about buying things from overseas. But e-commerce in Africa is, I think, twofold. It's about buying from overseas, yes, but it's also about satisfying that demand that the overseas markets have for African goods. The world wants what Africa can create, what it makes, and what it grows. And the air cargo industry is there really to support that and help the national and the regional and the continental economies prosper. So with that, I wish you a very successful event over the next 2 days. I'm looking forward to some great panels, and thank you very much for allowing me to speak today. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Glyn Hughes, for those exciting figures. I'm sure if any airline doubted the impact of cargo before COVID, during COVID, we all saw what cargo meant for this industry. And no doubt, all airlines now are giving attention and a focus to the cargo business. Next, I would want to invite my sister and Secretary General of the African Civil Aviation Commission, Ms. Adefunke Adeyemi, to make her goodwill remarks.
Thank you, Raphael. Standing on existing protocol, the Secretary General of AFRAA, the Group CEO of Ethiopian Airways, the Chairman of Ethiopian Group, the RD of ICAO, East and Southern Africa, DG of TIACA, Regional Director for ACI, former Secretary General of AFCAC, Captains of Industry, CEOs, Directors General, ladies and gentlemen. Let me start by thanking our chief host, or our host, Ethiopian Airlines, for their warm and welcoming hospitality. We have all enjoyed it since we arrived in this beautiful city of Addis. I also want to thank the Secretary General of AFRAA for inviting me to this event. And this event holds a special place in my heart and for me, because for the past few years, it's 11th anniversary now, for the past few years, this event has been held in around the same dates. Those dates happen to fall on my birthday. So last year I was on the stage in Nairobi on the birthday. Today is not the birthday, it's tomorrow, but still, I'm here. Next year, though, no. All right. Over the years, ladies and gentlemen, African aviation has been latent with an unfinished story of unrealized potential, which should give us a clear, compelling, and shared desire to act and change the narrative in keeping with the theme of this convention. Stakeholder events like these are therefore imperative to mobilizing such action and to put tangible milestones in the history of African aviation. Change, though, is one of the hardest things in this life, and it involves significant effort to challenge, to modify, or to replace existing narratives, beliefs, systems, and customs through the creation and deployment of new or different narratives and approaches. Research shows us that how we think about issues can change how we talk about issues, and therefore how we act, which can in turn change how others think, talk, and act, underscoring the criticality of our conversations here over the next few days. We must be intentional in our collective action to change our narrative through purposeful interventions that can open the space for the new narratives that we want and that can make the biggest difference in order to achieve real impact at the policy, political, social, economic, and cultural levels. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, AFCAC is totally committed to its mandate of ensuring the full liberalization of intra-African air transport services, both in principle and in reality. For this is a narrative that we have heard over the years. However, the change will come through specific actions to facilitate this implementation of the Yamoussoukro decision, the pioneering framework agreement for the liberalization of Africa's air transport market, and the single African air transport market. The steps we are taking now are expected to result in the reduction and ultimately the elimination of restrictions on traffic rights, capacity, frequency, pricing, and promotion of multiple designations, as well as full liberalization of cargo and other air services. To this end, and in order to address the nagging challenges posed by poor connectivity across the continent, AFCAC, in collaboration with stakeholders, including AFRAA and so many others, recently launched the SATAM Pilot Implementation Project, the SATAM PIP, under the theme Accelerating Air Transport Liberalization in Africa to improve continental connectivity and integration. The SATAM PIP now involves 20 states. We launched it with 15, and 5 more have joined since November last year. And these 20 states have been categorized into 6 clusters. This event saw 14 ministers of transport from countries that signaled to AFCAC that they were ready and willing to proceed with implementation. Therefore, the implementation of the YD and Africa's air transport liberalization will be driven in a phased manner. The goal of the initiative is to move, as we said, with those countries that are willing, and to specifically increase fifth freedom traffic operations across Africa from its current level of 15% to 30% by 2025. Another story, another narrative. SATAM PIP adopts a cluster of states approach which is meant to coalesce the smaller changes around the bigger vision of full liberalization of the entire continent through a carefully planned reconfiguration and alternative strategies for addressing the challenge more creatively. This involves setting well-defined and achievable goals and then taking small steps towards achieving them. Aviation safety and security, ladies and gentlemen, will always remain a focus for AFCAC and a key priority. And therefore, under the umbrella of the SATAM, AFCAC is providing technical assistance to states with their effective implementation, in other words, their safety score that is lower than 60% in the area of aviation safety and security. This technical assistance and support are being provided as well to airlines in order for airlines in SATAM states to be able to achieve IOSA, the gold standard of airline safety, and ESA for those operators that fall within the category. Affordability of air transport and high cost of aviation remain the bane of African aviation. We've heard it over the course of this morning's opening ceremony. We heard it from the CEO of Ethiopian Airlines as well as the SG of AFRAA. It is a serious problem, a serious challenge to the growth of African aviation and therefore African socioeconomics. We are focused in collaboration with the aviation ecosystem and stakeholders on addressing this issue as a critical pathway to increasing traffic volumes and throughput across the continent. The AUC mentioned this harmonization approach to taxes, fees, and charges, and we will be engaging with states and regional economic communities on this issue. At AFCAC, we also believe that a sustainable and resilient aviation industry is a driving force for Africa's socio-economic development. Crippling aviation fuel prices constitute a great strain to the African airlines. And as a result, again, in collaboration with the African Union, AFCAC recently met with some key stakeholders, including ICAO, IATA, the CEO of Ethiopian Airways, AFDB, UNECA, and several other key stakeholders to discuss these challenges, including advocacy for development of alternative aviation fuels, given that Africa is supposed to be the biggest source. And so we want to get in at the beginning and make sure that we're part of the solution. We will be working with all relevant stakeholders to develop a white paper on sustainability of African aviation, both from a cost, connectivity, and sustainability point of view for adoption by African heads of state in the next summit of the AU. Once again, I thank AFRAA for putting this event together in this festive week of mine, and I urge for greater collaboration of this kind through the different events that we have across the continent and through sharing of resources and mutual support in order to promote air transport sustainability for our continent. Thank you all very much.
On a more serious note, I think AFRAA has taken note of your concerns, and we will endeavor subsequently to carefully navigate our events away from your birthday to ensure that you have a very quiet, peaceful, and enjoyable one wherever you choose to. Ladies and gentlemen, we move on with Goodwill Speeches, and it is my pleasure and honor to invite the Regional Director for East and Southern Africa, ICAO, Mr. Barry Kashambo, to make his Goodwill race.
Thank you very much, my brother Raphael. My brother, the Secretary General of AFRAA, Mr. Bate, Secretary General of AFRAA, my sister, the Secretary General of AFCAC, the DG TIACA, Secretary General SCI Africa, all the CEOs of airlines here present. I also want to join to recognize Ato Gilma here present, my good friend, aviation stakeholders in your respective capacities, the exhibitors, aviation enthusiasts, ladies and gentlemen. It is an honor for me and indeed a privilege for ICAO to be invited to this Aviation Stakeholders Convention. I also wish to convey gratitude and greetings from the ICAO Council President and the ICAO Secretary General and the entire ICAO fraternity for the opportunity to partner with AFRAA, which has organized this event. Special thanks go to Ethiopian Airlines under the leadership of Mesfin, and the government of the people of the Federal Republic of Ethiopia for hosting this convention. Like other speakers have mentioned, the theme, changing the African aviation narrative, is timely and critical as we endeavor to recover not only from the COVID-19 pandemic impact, but also from the geopolitical related challenges that we are facing currently, which are making it difficult to have a sustainable air transport growth and development in the African region. As you are all aware, the current geopolitical challenges have resulted in high fuel prices, and in Africa in particular, we have got airspace closures that have made it challenging for the airlines to operate not only in areas that closed, but also in area and conflict zones. I wish to emphasize the importance of air transport to our national development and the need to positively discuss the issues related to the growth and challenges beyond the recovery of COVID-19 pandemic and the impact that hit us during that period. As mentioned by the previous speakers, current information indicates that air transport is recovering at a reasonable pace, with air traffic levels reaching 80% of 2019 levels. In fact, in some regions, these levels have been surpassed, giving us the encouragement of positive development in the future, but only if, and only if, collaborative and cooperative frameworks are embraced amongst all the stakeholders at international, regional, and national levels. According to ICAO's forecasts, it is anticipated that air passengers demand in 2023, this year, will rapidly recover to pre-pandemic levels on most routes globally, as well as in African region, with a growth of around 3% on 2019 levels. In Africa, the flagship projects of the African Union, Agenda 2063, notably the Single African Air Transport Market, the SATM, is poised to significantly enhance the role of aviation in connecting the continent through promoting trade, tourism, and investment. Progress made in realizing the implementation of SATM over the past few years is very, very encouraging. ICAO is committed to supporting the implementation of SATM as its key objective are in line with our long-term vision for international air transport liberalization. The potential to recover and achieve air transport growth requires focusing our efforts and capacity to address the key systems and capacity challenges in the region. And this includes reduction of taxes and charges. There is an urgent need to mobilize resources towards sustainable investment to support the modernization and expansion of high-value, technologically driven aviation infrastructure and human capital. ICAO is closely working with African Union Commission and its member states and other stakeholders and the industry partners to evaluate the existing aviation infrastructure gap and prioritize the needs to meet future capacity and other demands continentally. As we strive to change the aviation narrative in Africa, ICAO is committed to enhancing its support in the areas of aviation safety, air navigation efficiency, aviation security and facilitation, all that towards the improvement of an effective implementation of state aviation systems. This vision will be achieved through global aviation safety plans, global air navigation plans, and global air security plans. All these present a global strategy for the continuous improvement of aviation systems that will fundamentally enhance the contribution of aviation to national development in a robust, resilient, and sustainable manner. Regarding environmental protection, I wish to highlight that ICAO recognizes the critical importance of its leadership to international civil aviation in limiting or reducing its emissions that contribute to climate change. ICAO Assembly Resolution 4122 on the review of carbon offsetting and reduction schemes for international aviation, commonly known as COSIA, provides updated information that is pertinent to the aeroplane operators and how aeroplane operators offset requirements will be calculated from the pilot phase of 2021 through 2035. Another important milestone for our sector is the adoption of the long-term aspiration goal called AFCAC on a net zero carbon emission in line with the Paris Agreement's temperature goal. While it is acknowledged that there are no obligations or commitments in the form of emission reductions to the states, I would like to encourage you to partner with ICAO to achieve this goal and recognize the important role that sustainable aviation fuels play in this industry. ICAO launched the assistance, capacity building, and training on sustainable aviation fuel called the ACT-SAF in 2022. And aviation industry partners such as African Union Commission, the Regional Economic Commissions, the airlines that are here present, fuel producers and manufacturers, among many others, are all encouraged to participate in this program. Allow me to encourage you to consider this program as a priority, as it has benefits which are tailored to support and provide the development and deployment of sustainable aviation fuels under the umbrella of ICAO. Finally, ladies and gentlemen, I wish to underscore that if we are to change the aviation narrative in Africa, it is critical to embrace innovation and technology while establishing modern infrastructure. And this must be accompanied by a new mindset to overcome the current and future challenges in a cohesive, collaborative, and strategic manner. This will require involvement of all stakeholders, including financial institutions and other partners, to harness the potential and promising opportunities of aviation in Africa. Only through concerted efforts can we achieve our goals and objectives if a strong, resilient, liberalized, affordable, and compliant air transport industry is to be realized in Africa. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Barry Kashambo, for those remarks. Ladies and gentlemen, last but not the least, allow me to invite Mr. Vancy Claude Montol, who is representing the Director General of ASECNA, to deliver his goodwill message. Mr. Montol.
Thank you. Excellency Minister of Transport of Federal Democratic Republic of Ethiopia, Excellency Minister of Tourism of Ethiopia, Excellency the representative of Commercial Infrastructure and Energy of African Union, Mr. the Secretary General of AFCAC, the representative of ICAO Regional Director for West and Central Africa region, Mr. the Director of Ethiopian Airlines, all CEO of airlines, ladies and gentlemen, representative of the government of the Federal Democratic Republic of Ethiopia, ladies and gentlemen, distinguished participants in your respective ranks, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. It is a great honor for me to be invited to speak during this 11th AFRAA Convention on such an innovative term such as changing the narrative of African aviation. This means, without being too mistaken, that air transport in Africa has now regained its full growth before COVID-19 pandemic. Allow me first of all to send you on behalf of my general manager, Mr. Mohamed Moussa, unable to attend, all his encouragement and support for this conference, which he kindly sponsored may God grant you His window and allow you to take the courageous decision for Africa. The Agency for Safety Air Navigation in Africa and Madagascar, AFCAC, will always be on the side of its users, its main customer, the airlines. This is why we did not hesitate to invite our member state to join the SATAM, Single Africa Air Transport Market. Major project of Agenda 2063 of the African Union, which launched in February 2018. Africa was bringing together the mechanisms that allow free trade between countries, a sine qua non condition for its development. The ZLECA for African Continental Economy Free Trade Area completes this system. This is why AFCAC is committed to implementing the SBAS component of the European Union Air Navigation Program using satellites for its areas. It should also be noted that European Union and African Union partnership is being implemented to provide Africa with the capacity to ensure air safety on its own using the said equipment. The purpose is to strengthen regional integration in Africa and Indian Ocean, and to improve security and environmental conditions, in particular for the supply in AFRAA region of satellite service perform better. It also undertakes to implement in its airspace, and for the benefit of airlines, radar and ADS-B guidance as BU, Global Air Navigation Plan, Air Navigation Safety Plan, and the implementation of a single sky for Africa. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, the single sky for Africa, which we are committed to building, cannot be imagined without its technical counterparts. I will have to quote an agency for safety of African aviation. This is why very early on, in parts of Central and West Africa, African states understood this and created the Agency for Safety Air Navigation in Africa and Madagascar, an acronym AFCAC. This agency, which brings together 17 African states and France, and soon 18 member states, because Rwanda joined AFCAC in January 2024. And this agency is an international institution created in December 12, 1959 in Saint-Louis, Senegal, based on North and South relation and South-to-South cooperative management model. It is based on 3 pillars, namely the solidarity of its member states by sharing their resources to better manage their airspace collectively. The sharing of the technical, human, and financial resources. The constant quest for excellence for technical, logical innovation. With its 64 years of experience, AFCAC has become a benchmark in the world of aeronautics to such an extent that in 1972, it received a Edward Warner Prize, the highest distinction in the field of aviation. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, changing the narrative of African aviation means first of all believing that change is possible. Above all, then you have to gain yourself the means to achieve your objective while implementing and respecting the action plan previously defined for the achievement of its objectives. The proposal approach is undoubtedly the one that will allow the sustainable development of air transport in Africa. The steps are therefore to carry out a diagnostic of African air transport market for a critical analysis of challenges, threats, and opportunities, then the identification of 3 economic, social, and environmental pillars for the sustainable development of air transport in Africa. Why? With view to build the roadmap to accelerate the implementation of the SATM. Why? Taking into account the objective of Abuja Declaration and exogenous constraint or technical innovation, such as sharing of resource, experience, e-commerce, network, and logistics. Finally, a differentiation could take place between passenger and cargo transport operation, as well as close and constant mechanisms for monitoring the gradual achievement of the objective first set should be implemented. It seemed to me to be an excellent challenge for this 11th AFRAA Convention. Thank you for your keen attention.
Thank you very much, Representative of ASECNA, for those opening goodwill remarks. We really appreciate ASECNA partnership with the airline industry. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, this brings us to the end of part 1, and I would invite my guests to please stand up for a photo opportunity. Where the cameramen, you can take some photos before they retire to their seats. After they retire to their seats, we will progress straight into our second segment of the program. And in this program, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to have 2 presentations, very exciting presentations that I'm sure none of you would want to miss. And the icing on the cake, a CEO's interview, a keynote interview with the group CEO of Ethiopian Airlines in between these 2 presentations. Thank you very much, my guest. Thank you so much for coming and joining us here. I would want to invite the Manager, Data and Statistics of AFRAA, Ms. Raffaella Irie, to please come forward and give us the current industry outlook in Africa, market trends, challenges, and some opportunities, just to set the scene. Raffaella, you have the floor.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. As announced by my colleague Raphael, I'll take you through from some slides on the state of the industry. I hope it will be as excited as he announced. So the aim of the presentation is to give you some trends in the current state of aviation air transport markets so that it supports your discussion about how we can change the aviation narrative. So the content will have 4 parts. First of all, the economic context that drives our industry. Second will be a review of airlines' performance. Third will be some information about AFRAA initiatives and projects. In fact, industry initiatives and projects. And finally, we'll get to the conclusion. So before we deep dive into the presentation, allow me to give you some few informations about AFRAA. So AFRAA is the acronym for African Airlines Association. It's an industry body that represents the common interest of member airlines. AFRAA was founded in Ghana in 1968, and its headquarters is based in Nairobi, Kenya. We currently have 48 member airlines. The mission of AFRAA is to promote, serve African airlines, and champion Africa's aviation industry. Our vision is to get to a sustainable, interconnected, and affordable air transport industry where African carriers become key players and drivers to the African economic development. So AFRAA has 5 strategic objectives. The first one is to support a safe, secure, and reliable air transport in Africa. The second is to enhance the visibility, the reputation, and the impact of African carriers. The third one is to get to a sustainable air transport in Africa. The fourth one is to enhance the cooperation between African carriers, and the last one is to make AFRAA a hub for data intelligence in Africa. So those are the 5 strategic objectives. Now, after this brief introduction about AFRAA, we'll go to the core subject of this presentation. And we'll start with the economic context. So to describe the current economic context that affects our airlines operation, we'll consider 4 indicators: the GDP growth, the inflation rate, the oil prices, and the currency rates. So first, the GDP growth. After the contraction that happened in 2020 with the COVID-19 crisis, the GDP growth, the world GDP growth rebounded to almost 6% in 2021, and then started to slow down. And in 2023, it's expected to reach 1.7%. Okay, regarding the inflation rate, the economic environment is also affected by the high inflation rate. We noticed in 2022 and 2023 that the global inflation reached 8.7% in 2022, and 7% is the forecast for 2023. Now, the situation is expected to improve, and the IMS forecast that inflation rates will reduce to 4.9% in 2024. So we shall see some improvement. The next indicator is the crude oil price. We saw a surge in 2021 due to the increase on demand after the restart of the economies post-COVID. Oil prices increased sharply and reached $138 per barrel last year, but the trend is now downward, and the price per barrel is estimated to reach $111 per barrel in average for this year. Regarding the currency rates, the strong appreciation of the USD impacts the foreign exchanges, as many currencies have lost value against USD. So this is also an indicator affecting the current operations of airlines. Now, regarding the African context, the African GDP is expected to reach 4% in 2023 after 3.8% last year. And the leading region for the GDP is the East African region, with an estimated GDP growth of 5% this year. The inflation rate in Africa is usually higher than the global average, and we estimate that this year it will peak to 16%, and for 2024, the coming year, it will reduce to 12%. So it might affect our airlines operation. So after the global economic context, we'll have a look at the airlines' performance. The share of African airlines in the global traffic in terms of RPKs is around 2% the 5 precedent years. So we see that here there's a huge room for improvement. Airlines' profitability after the drop during the COVID is expected to improve, to go to the positive side this year. And the net post-tax profits in billion USD for the global industry is estimated at 4.7 billion USD for this year. Regarding passengers' performance, African airlines have carried 67 million passengers last year and are expected to carry for this year 85 million passengers. This is the global figure for African airlines. The RPKs are expected to reach 76% of the pre-COVID level for the previous year, 2022, and around 95% for 2023. So we can see that we are improving and we are almost catching up the level of the pre-COVID. We have to keep improving and exceed this level by the next year. For the passenger distribution, the domestic traffic is dominant with a share of 38% of the passengers. Intra-African traffic represented 31% only, followed by intercontinental at 30%. So we have to work to increase the level of intra-African connectivity. In terms of regional traffic, the northern region of Africa represents 39.5% of the continental traffic and is highly dominated by the traffic to Europe, which represents 75% of the traffic from this region. The East African region represents 19.3% of the continental traffic. And in this region, domestic traffic is dominant with 45% of the traffic. The intra-African traffic is quite low with only 22.5%. The Southern African region represented 19.4% of the continental traffic and is highly dominated by domestic traffic, which is 63%. Apart from the domestic, the first destination region is Europe for this region. And finally, the West and Central African region represents 27.7% of the continental traffic and is also dominated by the domestic traffic and followed by the intra-African traffic, because in this region we have significant regional carriers. So regarding cargo performance, IATA reports that over the course of 2022, the global air cargo demand was 8% below the outstanding performance of 2021, but still close to the pre-COVID level, with only 1.6% contraction. With respect to regional cargo activities, North Africa and Northern America and Africa remain the only two regions that achieved higher air cargo demand, both in terms of CTKs and total CTKs and international CTKs compared to the pre-pandemic level. So cargo operations are still well-performing in the African region. In terms of year-on-year cargo traffic per sub-region, we can see that the Central African region, East African region, Southern Africa, and West Africa, a bit behind the level of the previous month, but the Northern African region is performing well in terms of cargo operation and is improving both for the previous month and the level from the beginning of the year. The market share of African carriers per cargo origin, Central Africa, we are around 20%, East Africa, around 36%, Northern Africa, around 26% for the previous month, Southern Africa around 20%, and West Africa around 20% also. So globally, the share of African airlines in terms of cargo operation is around 30%. So this is an area also where we have to improve. In terms of revenues, passengers' revenue losses compared to the level of 2019 for African airlines was estimated at 3.5 billion for the previous year, 2022. And for 2023, we will be around 1 billion USD losses compared to 2019. So we are approaching the levels of 2019. We have to improve, continue improving. In terms of net post-tax profit, for the current year, we are expected to reach 200 million USD of losses for African airlines. For connectivity, African airlines have exceeded the number of pre-COVID international routes around the month of October last year and continue to improve on opening new routes. So this is a trend that we have to keep. Regarding Fifth Freedom flights, 85% of intra-African flights are direct versus 15% which are connecting with one stop or more. And among those direct flights, Fifth Freedom flights represent around 21%. So this is an area where we have to work in order to reach the objectives of the SATAM PIP. The share of direct flights by sub-region, Northern Africa is the region where we have the higher level of direct flights, followed by Southern Africa, then Eastern Africa, and Central and West, where Western Africa is the last one. But in terms of share of Fifth Freedom flights, the Central and Western Africa is first, with 53%, followed by Southern Africa, Eastern Africa, and Northern Africa finally. And for the Central and Western Africa, this can be explained by the operations of the regional carriers that have a system of hubs which encourage the Fifth Freedom flights. In terms of intra-African connectivity compared to the pre-COVID level, we can see in the graph there that during the third quarter of the previous year, intra-African connectivity had reached 87% of the pre-COVID level and exceeded during the quarter 4 of the previous year. So we have catched up with the level of intra-African connectivity prior COVID, but we have to improve because as we saw in the previous slides, the level of intra-African connectivity is still low. Now, after all those figures, let's have a look of industry initiatives and projects to try and change the narrative of the African aviation. The first one is the AIG Air Transport Sustainability Laboratory, which took place in Nairobi last year. After the discussions, 5 projects were identified. The first one on reduction of fuel taxes for international flights and removal of custom duties on imported aircraft and spare parts. The second project was on rationalization of high taxes and charges in the continent. The third one was a project on free flight routing and the single airspace infrastructure. The fourth project was operationalization of the SATAM. And the last one was on partnerships between airlines and tourism in order to improve intra-African tourism. So after discussing during a week, the participants have developed a roadmap with a set of actions that will allow to reach the following objectives: increase the number of Fifth Freedom city pairs in Africa, develop guidelines and economic regulation framework for rationalization of taxes, charges, and fees, achieve a competitive and affordable air travel to boost the intra-African tourism, reduce the taxes on fuel and abolish custom duties on spare parts and aircraft, streamline and automate the flight permits acquisition processes, and boost flight operation efficiency in our airspace. The second initiative is the SATAM Framework Safety Project, which is run in collaboration with AFCAC, AFDB, and IATA. It's aimed to boost safety in airlines operation within SATAM member states. The project targeted 4 airlines under IOSA and 12 airlines under ISA. The preparation program was to help our airlines through the following steps. Some workshops on IOSA and ISA, SMS and QMS trainings, IOSA and ISA gap analysis, and follow-up with the airlines in order to correct any gaps that might be identified to help them getting certified for safety purpose. Apart from the projects, AFRAA has a number of internal projects to help our airlines improve their operations. We have a capacity sharing portal which allow our airline to share and consult aircraft availabilities for their operation needs. We have the spare part pooling project, which is aimed to allow our airlines pooling in specific regions or airports, and that will allow them reduce their costs in case of AOG or any issue that might happen to in any station. We also have a project on air navigation charges. This tool will allow airlines to monitor their air navigation charges and compare with any bills they might receive, and this will allow them to save on costs on air navigation. We also have the AFRAA connectivity portal, which aim is to help our airlines and improve on their cooperation. This connectivity portal is showing opportunities for connectivity in different stations. And for this particular project, we will have a masterclass tomorrow. You are invited to attend the masterclass and have more details about the project. And finally, we have an AFRAA distribution project, which is aimed to develop a continental and tailored for African airline distribution tool. Apart from that, AFRAA has also a consultancy unit. We have an airline restructuring unit. We have some committees on technical and operations. We have a training unit, and you are invited to contact AFRAA in case you need any assistance in those different areas. So in conclusion, despite some disruptions due to the economic environment, airlines in general and African airlines in particular are slowly approaching the pre-COVID level of activity. 2024 should be the year to return of the 2019 levels. AFRAA and all its industry partners are multiplying initiatives to ensure not only an accelerated resumption of activities, but also to establish an optimal operating environment for all the actors in the African aviation. And that brings the presentation to its end. Thank you very much for following.
Ladies and gentlemen, another round of applause for Raffaella. She bears the feminine version of my name. So that's my sister from another mother.